I'm joined by Dermot Keyes of the Waterford News and Star. Um, your thoughts on Waterford's 19 points to 30 against Limerick? What were your thoughts overall?
Well, I mean, it's naturally disappointing, Shane, but it's a different type of disappointment from, say, 2017 when it was a much closer game, and then obviously it's a whole level of different disappointment from 2008 when Waterford just blew out against Kilkenny. But I suppose maybe it's unfortunate from Waterford perspective that in 2008 and this year it seems like they've met generational opposition, the two teams that have defined the eras that they're playing in, and it appears the only thing that Limerick are missing in comparison to that Kilkenny team is goals. But when you're averaging 28, 29 points a game, as Limerick have throughout this championship, it's quite a worrying prospect for everyone else if this Limerick team actually catches fire with the inside line and starts scoring goals, because suddenly it's going to become an even bigger mountain to climb. Whereas Waterford, when you think about it, they scored 21 points against Limerick in the Munster final. So from that perspective, the performance level didn't dip all that much. They certainly played better in the Munster final than they did against Limerick today. But I think it's quite clear that Limerick played a good deal better than they did in the Munster final, and this was by far and away, I thought, the best they had hurled the whole year.
How much of a blow was it to lose Tyke de Burke? He was in the hurler the year running before this, and then to lose him during the first half. Iarla Daly came on and played very well, but Tyke de Burke, he's that security blanket back there, and he drives you forward.
Well, he's one of the chieftains in the team, and Waterford needed all their chieftains to fire today for 60 to 65 minutes to be even just in with a chance of winning the game. So when he went off, that was an enormous body blow. I mean, look, I suppose we can look at it in the other point of view to say that, well, we wouldn't have had Tyke at all if the championship had been played under normal circumstances. So the fact that we actually got that much out of him in some respects was a bonus. But he's been terrific over the last 5-6 weeks for Waterford. But when he came off, I can just imagine if there was a crowd here today, I think you would have felt the expectation of Waterford supporters been sucked out of the ground when Tyke had to make way, because really we needed him on the field the whole time. Limerick were plundering repeatedly at that stage of the game, and even though, as you said, Iarla Daly did very well when he came on, I think it'll stand to him in future, a great development for him on a personal basis. Whatever chance I think we had of winning the game, once we'd lost one of our prime players in Tyke, we probably weren't in with a shot, to be honest.
And that's been kind of reality for most teams. Tipperary beaten very soundly, and it could have been more than 10 points. Clare beaten by 10 points. Today it's 11 points. And Galway were the only team to push them really close, even though it felt like Limerick could have pulled away more. Like, they are a ferocious team. And what they did today, I felt, was they shut down your key men pretty well. Calum Lyons had a quieter day. Jamie Byrne was relatively quiet. Neil Montgomery didn't really get into the game. Austin Gleeson did quite well, getting 5, including a sideline and a free. But in general, they shut down your big men. Even Desi Hutchinson was always outnumbered.
Well, I mean, we had no opportunity at all today to develop a scoring flurry, and that was purely down to how, as Derek McGrath said, the manic aggression of Limerick out there today. I mean, there was 2 to 3 guys on top of each Waterford player whenever they got the ball. There was key things happened. You talk about it, Stephen O'Keefe made that incredible double save, but during that particular quarter of the game, or 13-14 minute period, Limerick scored 4 unanswered points. That could easily have been a goal in 4 or a goal in 5, and the game would have got completely away from Waterford then. So it's to Waterford's credit that their doggedness and their stubbornness remained manifestly evident throughout. There was no negative body language. There was no one throwing the dummy out of the pram, so to speak. They kept hurling right to the last minute. And look, there was 4 to 5 reasonable goal-scoring chances, but they all had to go in. Realistically, Waterford had to score 2 to 3 goals at minimum today to stay in the contest, when you consider what Limerick racked up. And even like 3 goals today in addition to 19 points wouldn't have been enough. That just shows to show how high the bar has been set by this Limerick team. But if anyone had said to any Waterford supporter at the start of this year, especially after 2 minutes against Cork in the league when Waterford had conceded 2 goals, that the campaign would end with Waterford playing in a Munster final and an All-Ireland final, having not won a championship game in the previous 2 years, I think we would have settled for that. I mean, obviously it's hugely disappointing that we've lost. This is the 3rd final, it's actually the 4th final in a row going back to 1963 that Waterford have now lost, so that's an unenviable run as well. But there's a whole generation of Waterford people before me who never got to see Waterford play in an All-Ireland final. Guys my age have now seen them play 3 times. Possibly the worrying thing for us is how we've not been firing at minor and under 20 level, under 21 level in all money for the last few years, whereas Limerick are galloping at minor level, 7 out of 8 Munster final appearances. So there are other systemic issues that Waterford have to address in terms of maintaining their position at the top table of hurling, because it's great that we're back there now. But obviously now next year there's going to be a level of expectation about how Waterford do, which simply didn't apply at all when it came to this particular campaign. So they're going to be a marked team next year. Liam Cahill and Mikey Bevins are going to have to try and come up with something slightly different, like every other team does. It's a constant state of evolution. I don't need to tell you about that. But like, I'm enormously proud of what the team has done for the morale of the city and county over the last 6 weeks in particular. We've had something else to talk about other than COVID and people in hospital beds. And look, it's just a pity that it came undone today, but there's never any shame in coming undone against an excellent team. It wasn't that Waterford played poorly today. Limerick excelled and they just overpowered them.
What do you think has been the biggest thing that Liam Cahill has changed this year? I was at that game that you're talking about, the Cork one, 2 goals gone in early, and I thought to myself, you know, this is another Waterford collapse that I'm about to see. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't always happen, but now and again it does happen. But like, what has he changed this year for your money? Like, why is it that the team is that bit better after a couple of big, you know, heavy defeats and 2 summers of no wins?
I think the primary thing is Waterford have carried a more regular attacking threat. Waterford look like a team that can score goals. Now, unfortunately, they didn't get one today. We needed 2 or 3 today. It just didn't happen. But Waterford did right from the off. You could see the intent was there. They wanted to get the ball into the inside line, and I felt if Dessie Hutchinson could be put in good positions today, that he could have made that quality he has put to good effect. It just didn't work out, unfortunately, for him. There's no reflection on Dessie. I mean, when you think Limerick, each of Limerick's half-backs scored a point each, that in itself tells the tale of the way the game went. Waterford have got a more of an offensive threat. There's more variety to their game than what there was at the latter end of Derek's time in charge and Pádraig's here as manager, which has made him a more difficult team to read. And that second half in particular against Kilkenny was like the culmination of all the work that Liam and Mikey have put into the team this year, because that was a day when basically everything went over and under. I think 2:16 out of 2:17 from play. That half only 3 wides. It was going to take a half like that at least today to stay in touch, and the prospect of Lightning striking twice, you know, I'm a wide-eyed optimist at the best of times, but it was a tall order to think Waterford could produce that level of display, because with great respect to Kilkenny, and they're still Leinster champions, they're not quite Kilkenny they were 3, 4, 5 years ago, but they still had to go out and be beaten, and it was a good psychological barrier for Waterford to get over, to beat Kilkenny in a semi-final in Croke Park, since we hadn't beaten them here in any game since the 1959 All-Ireland. So it's what Waterford do next year now. In terms of it, it'll have to be tweaked a little bit. Stephen Bennett's free taking today was terrific. If it wasn't, Waterford would have been on a hiding, and it would have been a far more difficult position for the players and management alike to pick themselves back up for when they get back into the swing of things for 2021. So I think an important thing that has happened is Stephen Bennett has matured. He's had the benefit of being fully fit, of not carrying any injuries, and he's taken on a mantle of leadership brilliantly in the absence of Pádraig Mahoney. I think every team at this stage anyway should have 2 to 3 free takers at minimum. You can't just look to one player to knock it out of the park every game. So I think it's an additional benefit for Waterford that when Pádraig is back fit, fingers crossed, you've got 2 guys, and obviously Austin from further out the field, who are capable of adding on scores from set plays. But you know, I mean, there was such a discrepancy between the scores and play Limerick got today in comparison to the Munster final, when Limerick only outscored Waterford from play by 2 points today. I can't even call off the top of my head how far ahead they were in that respect. But Waterford didn't create enough scoring opportunities and didn't finish enough of them, unfortunately. And some days you're just beaten by the better team. Another thing I suppose is worth pointing out is and I know the championship has changed, it'll be 11 years now since Waterford won a Munster championship come next year. So in as much as there's been a famine for Liam McCarthy, suddenly we're 11 years, and it's kind of gone by because we've done very well in the league and in the championship for most of those years. But you know, a trophy is important, a trophy is significant. So if Waterford were to go on a good league run next year, it's obviously going to matter more for a county such as Waterford. But look, Limerick have won the last 2 leagues as well, and we've seen Kilkenny and Tipperary before them. You know, it's become more of a fashionable thing for the dominant team to go out and actually do well in the league too. It's no longer taken as a purely secondary competition. So Waterford will need to hit the ground running in the league again next year. You know, Dessie Hutchinson probably needs to add a few more goals to his tally, but he needs to get the ball in there. It's no fault of him if the supply isn't coming in. So I think the kind of quick low ball that the likes of Aaron Gallan is clearly thriving on is probably something Waterford need to work into their game a little bit more. Of course, you know, you look at the team today and realistically you think Kevin Moore at 33 might be the only player who might consider his future. I hope he stays on. I don't think there's any reason why he shouldn't continue. So when you look and you consider the cohesiveness and togetherness of this Waterford team, there's no reason why we can't be contending for the last 4 of the All-Ireland series again next year. I think that should be the minimum for a Waterford team, given how well we have been over the last 22 years in comparison to all the years beforehand when we went years without winning a single match. It's still very disappointing. You know, we've been the bridesmaids for so long. We've seen all the other traditional hurling counties make a breakthrough, and even today to see Antrim actually winning was great, but we're still waiting to pick this trophy up in Croke Park. It's been a hell of a long time. The odds were against us today. I mean, this is the 3rd time we've played Limerick this year. We've lost the last time we played them here in Croke Park. We lost the league final. So Limerick were always going to be the favourites, and they're worthy champions. No one can dispute that. 10 wins out of 10 this year. They've won every trophy they could possibly win that's been put in front of them. I think, you know, progress of Waterford next year, you know, might well be looking at targeting the Munster Championship to try and win it. Then you've got 1 game less, and then you can really target an All-Ireland semi-final without, and hopefully get back to this stage. Now, will we have the traditional Munster Championship format, which I think has always suited Waterford better? We've had plenty of years, like in 2017 when we lost to Cork first time out in Thurles. That ended up in the making of the whole campaign. Whereas if we do go back to the round robin series, you know, it's obviously been disastrous for us the 2 years it was held. And there's the whole question mark over Welsh Park. There still hasn't been any redevelopment done of Welsh Park yet, unfortunately. That was consolidated at the bottom, but there's been no major work done in relation to replacing the stand. So we don't know when that's going to happen as of yet. But the pitch has been fantastic. We certainly can't say that the pitch was a problem. The pitch here today, actually, unfortunately, was showing a little bit of wear and tear, but it certainly wasn't a factor in which either team won or lost. But it's nice that people can end the year in Waterford thinking positively about the team. As I said, we would have taken arms, limbs, anything to be in this position at the start of the year. And any year you beat Kilkenny in the championship, we haven't had that many of them. We have a genuine rivalry with Kilkenny now. Over the last 6 matches, we're actually on 155 points each now. I was looking at it during the week, which is phenomenal. It's a genuine rivalry. You can't have a rivalry if one team is winning the whole time. That has been somewhat set to right now. But obviously Limerick have got a run on us in recent years. We haven't beaten Tipperary in the championship, I think, since the 2008 semi-final. So like, there are these psychological barriers Waterford need to cross now. We've got over the line against Kilkenny. We've got to beat Limerick in a game against Doon, and we've got to beat Tip. And realistically, if you're beating either Limerick or Tipperary most years, and you're rubbing shoulders with Kilkenny, you know, you're mixing with the right company. So hopefully this year will be the start of something, not the end of something. You look at the age profile of the team. It certainly suggests that there's more in the armoury. Iarla Daly was a toddler when Waterford played Kilkenny in the semi-final here in '98. So there's no reason to suggest that Waterford can't come back next year and give a good account of themselves again. This year exceeded expectations. It was a bonus to get to an All-Ireland final. But there's no disgrace in losing to as good a team as Limerick.
That's brilliant stuff, Dermot Keyes of the Waterford News Star, and a brilliant analysis as well. So really appreciate you doing that.
Cheers.